Got to do this over again. Hi, everyone. TJ it's I-45 now in Galveston now. And welcome to another edition of Healthcare Unmasked, presented by UTMB Health. Glad to have everyone on the show and watching us here today. A very important program. So we're talking about Alzheimer's. We're not only going to talk about what's out there as far as treatments and research that's being done, but also the resources to help you to deal with things as they are today. We've got a great panel of experts that will be with us and talking about that throughout the day here today. And in fact, let's go ahead and bring them on right now so you can see everybody, because I had not adjusted the cameras just yet. Sorry, we're getting used to our new setup everywhere as we get this set up here. Let me get this. I'm learning again how to rework everything here. There we go. Now we got everybody set on the program. Now I say that, but then I'm me and Sabrina are the only ones on screen. Why is that, Sabrina? We'll get it fixed here in a second here. Sorry, folks. I'm doing my camera switching live, and it seems not to want to cooperate with me. Let's do it one more time. Wait, 2, 3, 1. Oh, there we go. Got it. Now we got it. There we go. Had to hit the right button and then we'll be ready to go. All right. And you can see we have a full house here. And then also joining us from the Alzheimer's Association is Sabrina Strawn. And we're glad to have you all with us here today. And we'll start off over here to my left. And we call him Dr. T, but we always have to make sure the Italian in him. We got to get Dr. Tagliatella. That's on with us here today. He did some postdoctoral training at UTMB, but he's the vice chair of research here at UTMB Health. We're glad to have you on, Dr. T. As always, he's a character, folks. Watch out. He's probably going to take over a little bit with us. And then right next to him and is Dr. Julie Kutak. I got to make sure. I got to say the Texas pronunciation. Assistant professor of instruction and director of program assessment and UT distinguished teaching professor and in the Department of Physician Assistant Studies in the John Seeley School of Medicine. It's all mouthful there. But more importantly, too, a caregiver also for your mom and grandmother, I should point out, along the way. And then Tammy Michael is with us here. And folks may remember the story we did with Tammy Michael sometime back during COVID. And she is part of the geriatrics program at UTMB Health, but also runs the house call program that UTMB Health, and we'll tell more about that as we get along. And then, as I said, not to leave her out, you see her on your screen there, and she'll come back and join us here a little bit, is Sabrina Strawn. She is with the Alzheimer's Association of Houston and Southeast Texas, and talking about some important things about resources. There's a lot out there right now that folks may not realize they have resources as we go along. And for those of you who, if you have questions, please send them to us, because you can make in the comment section. We have an expert panel here that can answer almost every single question you'll have throughout the way. But let me start off right now with you, Dr. T. And, because the question comes up always in this is that because people think they know what Alzheimer's is, but in all reality, they don't. So I wonder if you can walk us through that so we can better understand.
Sure. Well, actually, let me tell you that even physicians and scientists didn't have a clear idea for a long, long time what exactly Alzheimer is. Let me do some clarity right away. Alzheimer is the most common form of age-associated dementia. Dementias, there are a very broad and diverse group of diseases, and dementia is nothing more than a symptom, which is the loss of our ability of interacting with the world around us, or applying executive thinking, or do things right. And that generally is recognized as dementia. Dementia is the most important social outcome of Alzheimer's disease. But what is Alzheimer's disease is way more than just dementia, even though dementia, as we will hear, I'm sure, in this broadcast, is what affects our society the most. Alzheimer's disease is characterized, that's very important to understand, by the deposit in the brain of two highly toxic proteins that normally would do their job, and then for reasons that are still unclear to us, these proteins decide to change shape, change appearance. become very sticky, they stick to each other, and eventually they form deposits that can be seen in the brain. And these deposits are the amyloid plaques, and formed by this protein amyloid beta, and then the neurofibrillary tangles that are formed by another protein called tau, like the Greek letter tau. Now, the simultaneous presence of these two lesions is what characterizes Alzheimer's disease. Very much comprehensive stage where this deposit can be seen in the living patient, even though for tau still there is a little bit of work to do. Ultimately, the diagnosis is confirmed at autopsy. Exactly, because one sees this. So then what we have learned recently is that these lesions begin to accumulate many, many years before the actual dementia symptoms. And also we have realized that the beginning of the pathology is much more vulnerable to any type of therapeutic intervention than it is the pathology once dementia ensues. So a big branch of research right now is engaged in trying to identify biomarkers. What is a biomarker? Is something present in your peripheral fluid, for example, in the blood, that would be ideal, that would unequivocally allow us to pinpoint people who eventually will develop Alzheimer's disease. Why so important? But for what I just said, that at that point you may imagine to start a treatment on people that are asymptomatic. They're not demented yet, but you have the certainty that will develop eventually the disease. And we don't have that biomarkers as of yet.
What does it take to get that biomarker that's out there? I mean, is there research that's gotten closer to be able to things? And what would that be?
It takes two things. First of all, it takes people that volunteer to be subject to study. There are classes of people that are at risk of developing Alzheimer. An example of people with type 2 diabetes, or that have survived their traumatic brain injury, or that have stroke, or that have some specific genes that put you at risk. So those people can be followed longitudinally across their life, say with sampling of their blood at specific points until some of them will develop dementia. And then you go back on this sampling and do a very in-depth study trying to figure it out whether something in their blood was telling us that what would happen in the future. And that would be the perfect predictive biomarker. So it takes study, and it takes actually volunteers, people that accept to be part of history, if I can say.
And the volunteer part is the big part right now. I would think that we've got to make sure that folks, I use my family as a perfect example of this, is that both my wife's parents died of Alzheimer's. My mother is in at very advanced stages of Alzheimer's. My father is in the early days of dementia, kind of where it's going into that Alzheimer's era. But that alone right there is like, okay, now, for us, that looking at volunteers, and my wife's older sister is actually going through a study right now. Right. And it takes that and to go through, and how, I mean, we hear about people wanting to do, volunteer for studies and the research that goes on. But in this case, it's because we need that sample out there, because, and give it a little closer to your microphone there too, Dr. T. But that's going to be so key in the long run. You can theorize on everything you want. You can look at things after they've passed away. You need folks who, as they're living, to be checking this, because see if you can find those markers.
Absolutely correct. Now, there are two types of volunteering. One, volunteering for, as you mentioned, a study, say, of an experimental drug, and that is a type of volunteering. The other type of volunteering is actually donating, make a living donation of specimens, specifically the brain, that will help a researcher to really, really dissect the cellular and molecular events that we need to combat to stop this disease. And, at UTMB, if you allow me to say, we have a program in collaboration with the Department of Pathology and Neuroscience. And this is through the Mitchell Center for Neurodegenerative Diseases that I direct, and also through the newly established UTMB Brain Health Institute, which I'm also the director of that we are building up, and we are trying to build up a effective and consistent brain bank. And it is important to understand that we are in desperate need of volunteers donating their brain, but also brains that are very difficult to come by for our studies are control brains. So if you sustain the cause to combat Alzheimer, and if, for example, you are the spouse of some person affected by the disease, you can donate as well. Imagine your brain will be the perfect control that will tell us how a normal brain would do. And also that individual will be exposed to the same diet, to the same environment, and the same stimuli of the patient.
Right.
So maybe a couple donation is actually the most valuable thing.
And that's an interesting point you bring up, because I had someone ask me, well, I don't know if I might have Alzheimer's or not. Why should I donate? And I said, no, they need to have the comparison. And particularly, as you said, and I always talk about the Kelly brothers when they went up to space, the twins went up there. That research that was going on was, so you see one on the surface, one up there. So you had the control, and then you had the one in space. So you can make those comparisons. Same thing as you said, a couple more than likely is going to have a lot of the same habits, a lot of the same environmental effects and everything else to be able to side by side. One may have dementia or Alzheimer's, and then the other doesn't, and then you're able to make that comparison and see that, right?
So for in that example, we will be able to exclude as a causal event anything that has happened in common to the couple, because obviously it's not pushing Alzheimer, otherwise both would have developed the disease. And that it's a tremendous help. So at UTMB, we are collecting the specimen. And again, we established a Brain Health Institute. We have a very effective Mitchell Center for Neurodegenerative Diseases. And we have plenty of scientists that focus on this study.
And in fact, if you look at your screen right now, folks, we do have the link up on your screen. But also, if you look at the comment section, you can click onto that link and go there. And I'm sure they can inquire how that, plus to see the work that you're doing there. One of the things I wanted to bring up in here, and by the way, folks, I don't want you to think we're ignoring our other guests here today, but we told Dr. Tagg we were going to let him start off things here in a little bit.
That's a mistake with a former Italian.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Well, I always say, if I ask you what your name is, 30 minutes later, I'll get the answer at some point. But I would also the question, because we hear a lot they'll talk about tangles. Yeah. And then they said, okay, that has to be the cause, but then find out, no, because we have found brains that didn't have the tangles, but someone definitely had Alzheimer's. Can you explain why we're seeing some cases this way and the other? And it may not be explainable at this point yet, but I think a lot of people saw, particularly if they saw the same 60 Minutes deal I saw, that they think, oh, that's what it is. So, test for that. But you really can't test for that when someone's alive. But can you explain what the tangles are, and then explain why, that may be a sign, but not always a sign?
No, absolutely. And that would include both the tangles and the plaques.
Plaques and tangles, right.
Not necessarily the presence of tangle and plaques would result in dementia, in the most obvious outcome of Alzheimer's disease. So the question first would be, are people with plaques and tangles but no dementia affected by Alzheimer's disease or not? That would be the first question. When we discovered these individuals, that happened like 15 years ago, we had a chance. Either consider them oddities and not include them in our studies, or, and that's the route we decided to follow, we consider these individuals resistant to dementia. If that is the case, then these individuals is telling us that there is a natural way for the brain to adapt, to come back, to escape, avoid dementia. And therefore, the big question, can we understand how they do it?
Right.
And can we induce the same extraordinary ability in anyone with the challenge with that? So that's the studies, the ongoing studies here at UTMB. We study resilience. So we try to understand how we can provide, there's always an example that I do, even to my students, which is there are so many factors that are studied that can potentially drive Alzheimer.
Right.
Heavy metals, stroke. Well, I mean, we already mentioned some of those. But yet, there might be more that we have not identified. So even taking care of all these risk factors, there'll still be more out there that we don't know.
Right.
So what about, we don't care about the risk factors. Well, we don't care. For a moment, but rather we focus on resilience. It is like to give the patient a bulletproof vest. So it doesn't matter, even those risk factors that we don't understand can be out there. If I made the person naturally resilient to dementia, we can successfully prevent the onset of the disease as we society know it.
Right. And that's the key. In fact, when we come back, we're going to talk more about your research, dive deep. And then we're also going to be making sure that we give you some resources along the way, too. And resources in such a way of how you handle things now, plus, hey, how to prepare for the future as well. And that's coming up after these words from our sponsor, UTMB Health.
There's nothing more important than quality health care for you and your family. That's why UTMB Health is in the communities where you live, providing easy access to innovative care. At UTMB, we know our patients need personalized care to lead healthy and fulfilling lives, providing everything from primary care and specialty care to urgent care and emergency medicine. UTMB knows healthcare. UTMB knows you. To find a UTMB doctor near you, visit utmbhealth.com.
And welcome back to Healthcare Unmasked, presented by UTMB Health, right here on I-45 now in Galveston now. And we're it's a topic that's near and dear to me, but also to many folks out there. You know, one of the things I got to see, I was, the research on this, and I pointed out that, as it comes with, as I was talking about with my wife, having both her parents have died as a result of Alzheimer's. My parents are now dealing with that as well. One of the things is, and this is why your research is so important, one of the things that used to be not too long ago that you'd come across somebody who had one parent or one grandparent that had Alzheimer's. I am seeing more and more of the cases that couples are. And to the point now, if you look at a certain age group, the 65 or older, 1 in 9, that's almost 11% of that population have some form of Alzheimer's. That's why your research here is so important. So can you dive down and tell me when you need me to bring up your graphic too? But you take a deep dive now as quickly as you can into the research that you're working on right now.
Sure, absolutely. Well, first, I would like to add to your point that more and more people, because it seems to sound it and is correct, more and more people are getting Alzheimer as we move forward. Now, it is important also to understand that we age way more.
Right.
The medical realm has made some of the diseases that were legal in the past are curable now. Just mention many types of cancer, for example, that we survive. And so with an aging population, since aging is the single most important risk factors for developing Alzheimer's disease, as we age more cases of Alzheimer will be part of it. And that's why we need to find a therapeutic approach which is really modifying the disease, because by the year, it's been calculated by the year 2050, the number of Alzheimer's patients will be so high to literally bankrupt our medical system.
Right.
And I don't even think what kind of decision will have to be taken at that point. So we need to avoid that. Absolutely. So, and that's why there is a very important drive in finding a cure, and not just because this disease, as we have done with many other diseases, but because this is a disease that is going to affect our society. It's way beyond the individual patient, which is important, of course, the individual patient, but it's our society. That's why it has to be an entire village needs to be committed.
If there ever is a time to say a village takes a village, this is going to be it, right?
Absolutely, as we will hear very soon. So our research, as was mentioning before, we are interested in unveiling, discovering those mechanisms that are involved in the ability of our brain of certain individuals to withstand the pathology associated normally with late-stage Alzheimer's disease, and yet they remain cognitively intact. So can we induce this extraordinary ability in anyone that is faced with this challenge in their brain? And we have begun these studies almost 15 years ago. We received a heavy funding from NIH, and now actually the existence of this resilient individual is officially recognized by the National Institute of Aging and by the Alzheimer Association. So we have, slowly, unfortunately, as research is, unveiled some of the difference that exist between a fully demented Alzheimer patient and a resilient. More recently, and those are many, that has to do, for example, with stem cells in their brain. They have a huge number of stem cells. Has to do with the antioxidant protection. So they manage oxidative stress very well. And then many other events that eventually results in allowing the pathology to spread, to be in their brain, but without doing any damage. And that's the extraordinary feature. So we don't need to necessarily attack the pathology as some of the most recent drugs that probably we'll spend one word on those do. Maybe all we need to do is allow the pathology or this sticky protein to spread as much as they want, just making sure that their brain is protected. So
it's about basically making a stopgap. And instead of going to the end run, let's get sure it stops here and doesn't go further as far as developing
absolutely
in the Alzheimer's.
Actually, I'll tell you that I would say 6 years ago, maybe more, I can't remember, a new form of very mild dementia was discovered. And this very mild dementia is called primary age-related.
Age-related, yeah, right.
Or PART. Mm-hmm. What happened in this individual is absolutely phenomenal. There is a very strong tau pathology developing in a particular area of their brain called the hippocampus, and that's the area that allows us to transform short-term memory into long-term memory. It allows us to remember things, which is one of the areas affected by Alzheimer's disease.
Well, and I talk about that because there was with my great-grandmother who had, at that time, we didn't even say Alzheimer's. We just said old person's disease. And I remember as a kid, her memory about what happened in the 20s and 30s was outstanding, but she couldn't remember what happened an hour ago. Yeah. And it's probably, and there is those cases and people will talk about it, but that is just recently. That's what I'd like people to understand. It just recently has been specifically diagnosed as, that's what that is.
Yes. And these individuals with PART is amazing because the pathology is very heavy in the hippocampus, but doesn't spread, which is what we would do in Alzheimer's. Starts in the hippocampus and then spreads on the cortex all the way in the back of our brain. So you see, our brain has developed ways to handle this pathology in many different ways. He has a way, one of my graduate students is currently studying, is an MD PhD student here at UTMB, this simple question: why doesn't spread? Because if I understand why it doesn't spread, can I block it in an Alzheimer's patient?
Yeah.
Or we have the pathology, people with pathology spreading all over the place, but being non-toxic, absolutely non-toxic. Can we understand now? So that all this indication tells us that our brain has features or capability that we yet don't understand.
Right.
But this capability seems to suggest that we could focus not just on the pathology, which is important to focus, but also on what our brain does in response to this pathology.
I was reading some research about what you're talking about there, in that the idea is the body does have some mechanisms. The brain has some mechanisms that it's doing, but if we can find a way to just enhance that a little bit, to be able to help the brain make that stuff, I liken it to, and I know that, folks want to talk about, but what we're seeing with the vaccines come in, that where you're able to get something that can target and actually helps your body do what it can do already. It just needed some help to it with mRNA that comes in, that could hold some promise down the line. And I stress could, because every time, and I think it's important to note to everybody here that when we talk about a lot of these exciting things, are exciting in the science world, but we're not to the excitement point of, okay, tomorrow we're going to have this on the market and everybody's fine. And you bring up a point like, we've been hearing a lot of the FDA about to prove this and about to prove that. And it's like, and everyone hears it, it gets in the media, people get excited about it when they should be, but it needs to be a bit of a reserved excitement.
It is, yes, a reserved excitement. First of all, excitement, yes, because our scientists, we're very excited about the latest development. And what we're talking about are an additional drug that has been approved. Well, there will be
about approved. To be. It's about to be, right?
Approved. But no, what I'm saying is the commission at FDA already gave unanimous favorable opinion. And this is like the sister drug of another drug, aducanumab, that was on the first page of the news not long ago when there was a controversial approval by the FDA, and then eventually went onto the market, but Medicare refused to support use of the drug, which is very expensive. The very good news is that Medicare will support the use of the drug this time.
Right.
So that's very, very important. Why the scientist excitement is always moderate? Well, first of all, because we're scientists. So we
every little move forward is a breakthrough.
It is.
Particularly in this field, we should point out. I mean, and I think you had said it earlier, and said, everyone's waiting on bated breath. If you're dealing with Alzheimer's in your family, you're waiting on bated breath anytime any word comes out, anything you grab onto. But for scientists to understand, for researchers and scientists, that any move forward is a huge step forward.
Yes, it is a huge step forward. In this case, the drug has promised to be disease modified. So I'm not slowing down. I might be able to modify the course of the disease. What is this drug? You mentioned is a vaccine. Yeah, you can call it a vaccine. Yeah, it's an antibody.
It's an antibody, right?
An antibody that, somehow managed to get into the brain and literally grab, like my hands are showing now, amyloid beta. This is amyloid beta. And take amyloid beta out of the way, which is great. So now amyloid beta is not going to do the damage that normally would do because it's been taken away by the antibody.
Right.
What is the part where the excitement is a little bit moderate for scientists? Evidence suggests that the major damages being done by amyloid beta occurs 10, 20, 30 years before dementia. So a great deal of damage has occurred. There is an example I always do, and, living Texas for the past 33 years, I can keep doing it, which is like try to take care of a gunshot wound by putting into safe the gun who fired the shot.
And I told you when you explained this in our pre-meeting yesterday that I thought that was a great example. It is, this is how you
will prevent fatal shots, no question about it.
No doubt about it. But that particular person that has a gunshot wound, that's not going to do a whole lot of good for him. You still got to go and treat that. And again, as you said, it's I use the term kind of incubating, but 10 years before you actually have dementia, you need to know to catch it early to do that. And there's not anything right now that tells you, okay, now go with it.
There are proposed blood biomarkers.
Right.
I have a postdoc in my lab who's studying actually this area. As I said, here at UTMB, we are very active in many of these fields. But still, we don't have a very reliable. We have biomarkers that would allow us to identify a person with AD, very solid biomarkers that can do that. But that would be the same that, a doctor neurologist can, in fact, diagnose AD. But it can help direct some of the clinical trials, some of these things. But again, the most important biomarkers, the predictive ones, are still missing.
Well, but again, it's exciting to talk about that research and about where those advancements go, because that means you got to this step, and that means then the next step is over here, and you're now one step closer to that next step, which I think in research, Julie, this is someone who cared for, your mother and your grandmother on this, is that, as somebody that's in a family that's looking for this, you're always just grasping at anything you can. How hard is that though for people in your position? I mean, you come from the medical profession, but how hard is it though when you hear this not to go, woohoo, yes, here we go. Yeah, right?
Absolutely. There are so many reasons to hope. And I have such optimism based on the work that you and your colleagues are doing. And also, it doesn't, right now, we're dealing with the gunshot wound that you're talking about. So I have hope selfishly for myself, my great-grandmother, my grandmother, my mother. And so I will likely develop Alzheimer's disease. Nice. And we know that my mother has one of the genetic markers for it. So there's a chance that I'm carrying it also. So there's hope for me. But in the meantime, we are looking for ways to improve the course of the disease, the experience of the course of the disease for people like my mom and for everyone else who's living with the disease and the effects of the disease right now. But yes, so the hope, the desire, and the want for the next step it's really there. It's really there. So it's hard to temper the excitement, but it's important. It's important too, so that you're not faced with disappointment.
Yeah. And it is important. And I liken it, you talked about the gun thing. I liken it to, the guy's free running for the touchdown and then lets the ball go right before the 1 yard line. We can't have that mistake. Right. Got to get over that goal line first, because if you don't, it's just a fumble and you haven't gotten the 6 points from there. In fact, when we come back now, we're going to focus more on talking about of how to, for caregivers, and how that goes. And there's caregiving, obviously, as individuals that we have going on, but we also have efforts where other caregivers can come into your home and help you on some things that UTMB offers as well. And we'll be doing that when we come back after these words from our sponsor, UTMB Health.
UTMB knows that good joint and bone health is the key to a pain-free and active lifestyle. UTMB Health Orthopedics specializes in providing innovative care for common and advanced orthopedic issues, including sports injuries and total joint replacement. UTMB knows orthopedics. UTMB knows you. To find a UTMB Health specialist near you, visit utmbhealth.com/ortho.
And welcome back to the show. Hi, everyone. I'm TJ Hall. It's I-45 now in Galveston. Now we're talking about Alzheimer's research, caregiving, and resources that are available to you. Now we're going to move over to, and again, if you have questions about this, please put them in the comment section. We want to help you out as well, but also share this program with others that are out there if you would. It'll be important. And now we introduced her earlier, but Julie Kutak, I should say, is now coming on with us. And you're in the PA program assessment here at UTMB's John Seeley School of Medicine, but you also have a direct connection. You mentioned your mother with Alzheimer's. Talk about that part of that story of your personal journey.
Yeah, thank you. And before I do that, I do want to clarify that the genetic marker that my mom carries, it codes for risk. It's risk. It's not a guarantee that a person will develop it.
That's important. There's a lot of these markers. That's what it is. It's a risk.
That there's a difference between something that is, dedicated and one that just increases risk. Yeah, my mom was an only child, and when her mother started showing signs of Alzheimer's disease and dementia, really moving from just what seemed like normal age-related changes, forgetting things here and there, to things that became really more intrusive. I was studying biology at the same time. And it really raised a lot of questions for me about what happens to a person when they start feeling like they're losing their sense of self. And my grandmother would say things like, I'm losing myself. I don't know who I am. And now, 20 years later, since my grandmother passed away, and I was honored by being able to be with her when she took her last breaths, my mom is saying the same things. I'm losing myself. I used to be smart. And she and I talk about how Alzheimer's disease has nothing to do with intelligence and everything to do with pathology.
Right. And you bring that up. It's one of the things I noticed this with my father and with my wife's mom. Mm-hmm. They realized something was wrong. They having gone through this. My wife's mother, her husband had passed away of Alzheimer's, so they knew. She recognized some of those things in herself at one point. Same thing my father started recognizing because he had seen it firsthand at places. And I wonder, too, if there's a torture to it because you know what's coming in some ways. It's not always the same, but there is this realization for folks. Your mom's line is like, my father used the same line, which was, I used to be pretty smart. It's
really hard. And that her insight waxes and wanes. It fluctuates. It's not always, sometimes she doesn't think she has any kind of problem at all.
Right.
So she'll tell me, I don't know why they won't let me drive. I could drive, and I'd be fine. But someone has told me that I can't drive anymore. When I try to maximize those moments of lucidity. So to help get me through the harder times when she's having more difficulty kind of orienting and being present. So she had one of those moments of lucidity just last weekend. And I asked her permission. Is it okay for me to tell your story? And I've asked her that probably 50 times. And she has always been consistent. She was a school teacher, that we aren't living in the shadows. We're not living with stigma. She wants to be out in the world so that hopefully her story and our story can help others. As far as the kind of torture, I think it's fleeting, because then she won't know what's going on. But yes, in those moments, it is really, really hard.
Because that realization, and my father had said to me he says, I know something's wrong. Don't know what I can do about it. And then but then later when he forgets something, he says, and it says, and then when he comes back and says it again, says, well, yeah, I forgot it already anyway. And he jokes about when he says it, which is in itself a realization, and I think the torture is more, maybe it may be more on our side. I don't know. I mean, obviously you said something that was very important. Those moments of lucidity with your mom, how important that is. And Tammy, let me bring you on, because I know that when you're out and doing the caregiver, program, when you're out making those house calls out there, the house call program, you see that firsthand too, of grasping moments and how important that is with the patients you see. And we're going to talk more detail of the program, but you also see the other family members around, and it's one of those things that you've got to kind of recognize that and kind of help them understand too what they're dealing with at the time. Is it not?
Definitely. The house call program, we provide PCP service in their home, And that's the main focus, is to recognize their environment, see not only the patient, but our patient is the family, the dynamics, the caregiver. We bring them all into the picture to help them cope with that disease and the disease process, as well as many others.
And Julie, let me ask you here, though, is that, the situation with your mom, is she at home? Is she with you or in a center? So folks have a full grasp
that's
of
a good question. So she was at home, and there are real benefits of being able to stay at home and age in place, because folks with Alzheimer's can sort of rely on their muscle memory and their long-term memory. She eventually had to transition and move in with me, and she lived with me for almost a year. It was very stressful because I was always worried. I would come to work and I was worried that she would fall or that she would do something at home that would, make her unsafe, and I wouldn't be able to get to her, and I wouldn't know because she couldn't really use the phone anymore. So I would come home, and I stopped kind of engaging in the world, right? I wasn't going out. I wasn't seeing friends. I wasn't really taking care of myself because I was really so focused on her. Eventually, she was falling. She fell multiple times. And the last time she fell in the bathtub and hit her head and was not able to get up. She was too weak to be able to push herself up. So the ambulance came, took her to Jenny Seeley, and she spent 3 or 4 days in Jenny Seeley under the incredible care of the UTMB docs up on the ACE unit and the care team there. And that's when she transitioned into long-term care. And what has been really amazing about that is that now she's not as isolated. It's not just her and, her friend at home, which is when she was living by herself. It's not just her and me in my house. Now she has a whole community of people who are living on her floor. She's made friends. She plays dominoes. I know she's getting 3 solid meals a day.
Right.
And I can go there now and just be her daughter and just reminisce and be, really present with her and not have to worry about all of the other logistical business that goes along with caretaking.
Yeah. And that is, this is a hard decision for the family.
It's a very hard decision.
Because you feel, I've been through this now, and my wife went through it. It's like you feel like you've abandoned your parent. And yes, it makes some burdens off your own life. You mentioned it, now you can have a life, but you really weren't. You were caring for your mom, but you weren't having time with your mom in many ways because you were worried at every single minute, right? I mean, it takes away from that time to spend with your parent or your spouse in some cases.
Exactly. And I think there's a real kind of act of forgiveness that caregivers need to give to themselves, like forgiveness as an active process. It's unfair to expect caregivers to be everything. And there are people in this world who are called to the health professions, and let them help you is a different way of thinking about it than rather I'm abandoning my duty.
And that goes to that again, it's the old mindset of things. Not only, that old mindset doesn't exist just in the medical field sometimes, or people think about things on the medical side of what Alzheimer's dementia is, but also on the other part, the logical, thought of, if I'm not the one doing it, who will? And if I go in, we see the horror stories on news, and, a flood comes, and, I know folks, the moment I mention this, I go, well, I don't want to see what I saw during Hurricane Harvey with those people in Dickinson. They talk about the flooded out care center, and everything else. But it does go into, again, there's some steps you have to go through. It's not an easy financial burden on many people. There are ways to work around it, that you can get assistance from Medicaid and even the VA at this point. One of the things, though, too, is that, and this is where we'll bring you in more, Tammy, is to talk about there's a program that UTMB has. It's called the UTMB Health Geriatrics House Call Program. First, tell us what that is, if you would, Tammy, and go ahead and scoot a little bit over so we can get more of your face in there instead of the profile. Tell us about the house call program at UTMB Health.
So the house call program, we see patients that are considered by Medicare as homebound. That doesn't necessarily mean they cannot leave the house. That means it's a taxing effort. Persons with dementia are included in that category because sometimes they don't want to leave the home. In their mindset, nothing's wrong with me. I'm okay. I don't want to go to the doctor. A lot of that has to do with they're scared of leaving the house, that someone's going to realize that they have memory problems and they're going to be institutionalized.
Right.
So they'll believe that they're never going back home. So they fight tooth and nail. And if they do get that person to the doctor, then their vital signs is going to be out of whack. They're not going to be able to get a true reading of what their blood pressures are because they're anxious, they're afraid. So we like to provide that comfort care in the home, bring them that clinic experience into their home, spend a little bit more time with them, learn about them, their situations, what resources they have. And I believe that we can keep a close eye on that individual and be able to help the family maneuver through the dynamics of when is going to be the right time that they need to move into a different setting, which we call transitions of care. They might need an assisted living. They might need a long-term care facility. They might need a skilled nursing facility, or maybe even inpatient rehab for a little while. And we can help them navigate through that system, provide written orders for home health services to get them strong again, help the family.
Bring the mic a little closer to you here. As I ask you, no, you don't need to scoot. Just bring the mic a little closer to you, if you would. There you go.
Help families, decide which medications, if any, that they need to do or not do, supplements. We do a lot of medication management, a lot of de-prescribing, because medications can cause or worsen memory issues.
Right.
So we provide them this full geriatric experience, utilizing the Beers list and, try to help that family navigate.
And in fact, you see on your screen now, we gave you the web address earlier, but we also have an email address that you can use there. Geri, Geri, that's not a person, by the way, it's geriatric, but geri.housecalls@utmb.edu. They can email about this program. And we've got an excellent staff there. As I said, the first time we got to work with you guys was during COVID, as I said, and was interesting because I did not know this program existed until we got a chance to go out and then talk about how in that realm of how after COVID, how much more there's been a lot of more interest in having the house call program. Is there now?
Yes. My colleague Jennifer Young and I, we love our community. We love our geriatric program and our patients, and would probably just do it 24/7 if we could, but we have to have some kind of work-life balance. But we go out in the community, and she's recently, realized, especially since the freeze, that there's a lot of issues out there with preparation for hurricanes or natural disasters. So our team actually won the President's Cabinet Award with UTMB. Yep. And she's out there every week talking in community centers about hurricane preparedness and getting everybody signed up with the STEER program for Galveston County. that's one thing that we love about our program is we see a need and we try to do something to make improvements to the community and provide education, because we're teaching.
Just the hurricane evacuation or hurricane preparedness alone is so big.
Yes.
And we say, okay, call this number if you need help and stuff like that. But not everyone has a family that's around them. So, but you all become a resource in that as well, right?
Yeah, exactly. And we have our geriatric Facebook page too. A little story is during Hurricane Harvey, we were off and, everything was flooding. It was coming a little bit more than we thought that it would. And I was sitting in my house just scrolling through Facebook the next day in the aftermath. And I seen one of my patients' picture and they were like, does anybody know this lady? And I was like, oh my God, that's my patient. So I messaged the person and I'm like, where is she and where is her son? Because her son was always home with her because she has dementia and she can't hear. So they said, well, here I am at this church, and I called the son and told him where his mom was and got them back together. He'd went back in the house for some supplies or something. The boat left without him.
Oh my goodness.
She couldn't tell anybody who she was or where she lived or any information about her son or a phone number or anything like that. So luckily we had social media and I was like scrolling through it to look for my patient. So after that, we started calling all our patients to try to make sure that they were okay, and then the freeze happened, and right with COVID, when we were doing the vaccines, we found so many people that were without electricity for several days. And that's why we were taking blankets and hot coffee and kolaches and anything we could to them. So we definitely want them signed up with STEER for hurricane evacuations. That's the thing about STEER is they need to know how many vehicles and how to prepare. So they want you signed up in advance and they want you to sign up every year. So even if you don't utilize their service, they can prepare with as many trucks as they need because they've got a good number in advance.
And that's a good point now, by the way. And this is where I think we all just kind of talked about it earlier about the village helping out on this thing. By the way, if you are in a neighborhood and you got folks on your block that that could use this type of help, hey, reach out to the house call program. As I said, we put up the email there. You can look at it in the comment section and click on that, and it can help you considerably to find those resources. And in fact, our soon to be our guest, Sabina Strawn, is actually adding some stuff that we're able to bring up now of some of the Alzheimer's Association help that's out there for this as well. And we're going to be running a little bit longer as we all kind of planned for this because I knew this was going to be a subject we'll be on. And in fact, anything else on that house call program before I go away to get ready for our next segment for all of this to be a part of?
I totally agree. It is a interdisciplinary process. We're not silos out there. There's other house call programs. We just want to see the community band together, use the resources out there, band with home health. There's law services out there that can help with geriatrics. Any of us can give you that information. We're all a team.
Yeah. Well, when we come back, we're going to be joined by Sabrina Strawn. Yes, she's still with us. She joined us at the beginning of the show, but she's going to be here. She's with the Alzheimer Association of Houston and Southeast Texas. And you may know them for their walk they'll be doing in October, but more importantly, the resources they bring and having people that you can lean on for help and support groups and the like. That's all coming up right after this word from UTMB Health.
UTMB knows that good joint and bone health is the key to a pain-free and active lifestyle. UTMB Health Orthopedics specializes in providing innovative care for common and advanced orthopedic issues, including sports injuries and total joint replacement. UTMB knows orthopedics. UTMB knows you. To find a UTMB Health specialist near you, visit utmbhealth.com/ortho.
And welcome back to Healthcare Unmasked, presented by UTMB Health. We have been talking about Alzheimer's and more than just the research that's going on, more than just the care that's going on. You're getting words from folks who are caregivers. You're getting words from the resources that UTMB offers through its house call program. And now we bring in, we save the foremost expert on Alzheimer's. No offense, Dr. Tag. In here with us now is Sabrina Strawn. She's with the Alzheimer's Association of Houston and Southeast Texas. Sabrina, thanks for coming on with us. What an important role your organization plays in dealing with dementia and Alzheimer's across the way. First, we got to applaud you for that. And thanks for coming on with us today.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for the compliment. I won't claim being the biggest expert because you've got a great team right there with you, so I'm very happy to be here.
But it is one of those things, Sabrina, is that, and I'm sure you acknowledge this, Alzheimer's Association couldn't do what it does without folks like this and
Correct.
with the volunteers that are out there. Talk about how important that is for you.
Oh, absolutely. Actually, we really rely upon the community for so much. We have partnered with UTMB, for example, both in recent kind of a listening session. We call them community forums. We also have a Alzheimer's Association support group that's based at UTMB, and the support group facilitator actually was our presenter at the community forum, Ms. Alice Williams, who's a wonderful asset. She's a volunteer for us as well as being an employee of UTMB, and I know several people there around the table have participated in our walk, which is very much volunteer powered. And yeah, absolutely. We can't do what we do without the power of volunteers, as well as those who are helping fund our work. Not just my work in the Care and Support Division, but also all of the research that the Alzheimer's Association funds, all of the work that we do, for example, with Congress, supporting the research and advocating for more and more research dollars for Alzheimer's disease, which after all is just a tremendous, it's one of the top 10 causes of death in the United States. Many people are not aware of that. So
Right.
we really appreciate all the support.
There's a lot of statistics, and we're looking at one of those community forum images you provided us here. And tell us about this community forum that was held recently, and what we have any more planned coming up.
For sure. We try to do about 4 or 6 of these in our territory a year. And this one happened to be at the League City campus of UTMB. The Houston and Southeast Texas chapter actually serves about a quarter of the state of Texas. So we're happy to have a staff person who's dedicated to the to the Galveston and Bay Area. But we also serve Beaumont, for example, East Texas. We have a lot of services that we offer in Sugar Land. And so we try to make sure that we visit each one of these places and let people have an opportunity to share their experiences, learn a little bit about the association, but inform us what their needs are. So, for example, at the League City Community Forum, we heard just really, really touching stories from people who, for example, their loved one had just gotten diagnosed, and the physician there was really not able to connect them up with services. And the way she described it was, she said it was like being put on a raft and set out in the middle of a lake with no direction. And as important as our healthcare system is to the identification of Alzheimer's disease, and also, it's really important to go in when you think that you may have some memory loss issues, because it's not necessarily Alzheimer's disease or another dementia. It may be something that can be treated, for example, treated easily. It could be polypharmacy, as was mentioned earlier, too many drugs that have cognitive effects. It could be depression, it could be thyroid issues. But what we heard.
We've lost Sabrina's mic.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, it went off there for a second, but we may have had you waiting so long the battery may have died there.
Well,
No.
we'll keep our fingers crossed.
Yeah. Okay.
So most people will go to their primary care physician to start, but at the same time, we heard from a lot of people and not just the League City Forum, but forums that we've had in Sugar Land and Katy. What we hear is there's kind of a disconnect between our healthcare system and connecting people up with resources. So the Alzheimer's Association is really working to help with that. We have health systems directors who right now, we work very closely with UTMB. We work very closely with Methodist, with the VA system to try to combat those gaps, as well as really support early detection. We heard earlier about how important it is to not just to have access to these new drugs that are about to come out and be funded by Medicare, but also in the earliest of stages. As many of you know, this is an opportunity for people to have their say. It's an opportunity for mom or dad to say, when it comes time that I can't make medical or financial decisions, I want my daughter to help with financial decisions, and I want dad to take care of the medical decisions, for example.
Right.
And you lose the opportunity later on in the disease.
Let me ask this of you, Sabrina, is that, you talk about the resources that you bring to bear here. Are you seeing the same uptick? I think we all talked about here as we have this aging population. And I talked about you're seeing more like with couples and the like of being diagnosed with dementia or Alzheimer's. Are you seeing that uptick just in our immediate area now through the Alzheimer's Association?
We definitely expect an increase in the number of people with Alzheimer's disease. Partly, as Dr. T mentioned, it's due to the fact that we have an aging population, that people who would have died at 50 from an infectious disease or 60 or 70 from cancer, for example, live until their 80s and 90s. Well, you get up into your 80s and 90s, you're talking about practically a 1 in 3 chance of getting Alzheimer's disease.
Right. It is definitely, something that we're going to all have to be paying attention to through, just we the attention to it too has changed over time as well. Forgive me, we're having some computer glitches here that I'm trying to adjust for on our screen here. I'm trying to bring up your here we've having a signal loss here, and the whole system has decided it's going to try to crash on me here. See, everything was going so good, and then go ahead.
Could I just speak to Sabrina's point about about planning early? My mother is now at the stage where she doesn't remember that she lived with me. She doesn't, there's so much that she has forgotten. And Alzheimer's affects so much more than just memory too. Right. She has a hard time making plans and thinking about complex things. When she was first diagnosed, we were able to speak with an elder law attorney and get her durable power of attorney and medical power of attorney filled out while she still had capacity. We were able to talk to her about her goals and her desires for her own end of life. We did it on a Sunday afternoon with some iced tea and Shiner and some good music playing.
The Shiner part was the important part.
So it wasn't a stressful conversation. And now having those documents has has been a lifeline in being able to help get some of her affairs in order. The Alzheimer's Association can connect you to those attorneys, to those care managers who can help walk you through that process. And as hard as the disease is, it is so hard. There is so much loss. Having some of those like chores taken care of has really opened up a space for us to be able to be present to my mom in a more emotional way. So I just wanted to sort of echo and build on what Sabrina was saying about the importance of planning.
And Sabrina, that's an important thing to point out here is the resources that Alzheimer's Association brings to bear to help people out here. And I wonder if you can share just real quick. And as I said, you can see here, you talked about it's the, in the top 10, it's the number 6 leading cause of death now in the United States. But if you can,
well, one
about
of
the resources y'all bring up for folks there.
Absolutely. So one of the things that we like to say is no one should have to
Can you hear me, Sabrina?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me?
Yeah, as I said, we're having a signal issue here.
So one of the things that we like to say
sorry, we're having some technical issues here and we've lost Sabrina. There we go. Now you're back.
Okay, can you hear me? Hello there. Can you hear me?
Yeah, now we can hear you fine. It's just the audio and video sync seem not to be working together.
Sorry about that. Hopefully that's not on my end. The Alzheimer's Association wants to say no one should have to go through Alzheimer's.
Keep talking. We'll see how it goes. Yeah,
alone.
You're fine.
We offer a 24/7 helpline.
Yes.
Staffed with knowledgeable people. So
now she can't hear us, so that becomes the difficulty thing. So I can try to lower our bandwidth. I think what we had an internet connection go out on us. No, it's on our end here.
Okay, I can hear you. So can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Hello there. Well, just in case people are able to hear, we wanted to let you know no one should have to go through Alzheimer's disease alone, that we offer a 24/7 helpline, and I'm sure that's going to be dropped in the chat. And so we have trained professionals who are able to answer any sort of question, whether you're concerned, do I have Alzheimer's disease? Where should I go? At 2 a.m, we're having trouble with a loved one who wants to leave the house and says that this is not my home. So that's our 24/7 helpline. In addition, we have a tremendous number of resources available online at alz.org/care. And then in addition, as Dr. Kutak mentioned, we have our community resource finder. So if you're looking for an elder law attorney or looking for a facility for a loved one, or looking for in-person education or a support group, you can find all of that through communityresourcefinder.org, all smushed together, or alz.org/CRF. All righty then. Well, I certainly have appreciated the opportunity to tell everyone about the resources available through the Alzheimer's Association. And if you want any of these, please call us at 800-272-3900.
All right, now we're back. Sorry about that, folks. And there's Sabrina. Now you can hear us okay, right?
Yes, I sure can.
What we found out, and my apologies to you folks, is that we lost total internet connection here in the middle of the show, right at one of the more important parts with Sabrina. So again, Sabrina, let me go back to what you were talking about, that there's no reason someone should suffer through Alzheimer's alone, and that's where you're kind of going with. And I wonder if you could touch on that again.
Absolutely. So we have, as Alice has dropped in the comments, we have our 24/7 helpline, which is always staffed with trained professionals who can answer things like, as Dr. Kutak mentioned, I'm trying to find an elder law attorney, or you call at 2 a.m. wanting to know where my husband thinks he's not at home. He's looking for the family home. What do I do? How do I get him to come back to bed? So we're able to offer all those resources through the phone. We're also able to offer most of those resources in our online at alz.org, and specifically for caregivers, we have alz.org/care. And it will walk you through the stages. It can help you with care planning. You know, a lot of people these days are more comfortable with the computer. As a matter of fact, about 25% of caregivers are folks in the sandwich generation. So we're talking about Gen X.
Right.
And then
I never heard of that converted as the sandwich generation, but that's it. Right? And as Julie was pointing to herself when you said that too, there,
yeah,
Sabrina.
Yeah, exactly. And then we have we have our community resource finder, which you can go to as communityresourcefinder.org, all smushed together, or alz.org/CRF. And here, just as here we
Let me
go.
go back. I'm sorry, I got ahead of you there. So
So there was the types of dementia that Dr. T was mentioning, just what Alzheimer's is within dementia. Dementia is kind of an umbrella term. And what we're really working against, and this was mentioned as well, the stigma, which keeps people from going to the doctor, keeps people from telling their family members, I think I have a problem, or telling their neighbors, you know, will you help us with Dad, because he may get outside and wander. Actually, we had wonderful, touching stories just earlier today about how people can get great care in assisted living facilities. Most people are cared for at home. Mm-hmm. And so we're able to support people wherever your loved one is. Mm-hmm. So you can contact us either through the helpline or on the CRF to look for support groups, for example. And I don't know whether people had the opportunity to hear that we have a support group right there in Galveston. We also have some other ones in the Bay Area. So you could call that 800 number to find out when those support groups are meeting. It is so empowering to participate in support groups, because you find out you're not only going there to get help, but you're also offering help. And you're finding out that you're not alone.
Right.
As I said earlier. So here you see
Which is probably the most important thing, is that you're not alone. To be able to talk to folks. And again, we have the 24/7 helpline. You can see that on your screen there, 800-272-3900 to get help. There's all sorts of researches here, and we're now catching up to what you were saying before, Sabrina. Sorry about that. Now we got all the technical glitches out of the way. You go to alz.org/care, and there, where you can find care options, stages of behavior. There's so many resources that you offer, and like you said, there's so many people who are resistant to do certain things because of stigma that comes in. And Julie, I think this goes to someone who said we need to not be in, like your mom said, actually, we need not be in the background. We need to be speaking as loud as possible, right?
Yeah. There is, I think, a cultural story of Alzheimer's as loss. And it's true. It's true. They lose so many things, and they lose them slowly. Capacities, memory, eventually the ability to swallow. They are losing so much. So it becomes a moment of radical affirmation to say, I am glad. It is good that you are still in the world. You have value. You have something to offer. And that's what we say to my mother. And I know that, and that's what the caregivers say. And when we, the professional caregivers saying, it is good that you're still in the world. When I look at my mom's face, I can see all the changes, and I miss her. I miss her snappy, sense of humor and her wit and wisdom. But I can still give her a hug. I can still tell her that I love her. And whether she can tell me or not, it won't change. It won't change her being present in the world. So I think the stigma is connected to this idea that we have value because we can think.
Right.
And instead, let's say they have value because they're human. And recognize and affirm the fundamental dignity of each person, despite their disability and limitations. So it's just a different way of being towards people with dementia. And when we do that, we can affirm their strengths. What can they still do?
Right.
And try to maximize those.
Sabrina, by the way, we got that all recorded, so we can just pop it all in for a good program right there. Just have Julia. I'm telling you, here's an advocate ever. If you need to have her in front of those caregivers out there. They're feeling down and like they're at a loss. I think this young lady can help out anytime.
Oh, for sure. And Julie's absolutely right. And, finding out what they can do, even when her mother doesn't recognize Julie as her daughter, her mother recognizes Julie as someone who cares for her.
Right.
And we're finding out, you probably can see videos on YouTube of people who are able to, who haven't spoken in months, who are able to, as soon as you play a song that was on the radio from when they were in their 20s, they can sing the entire song and participate with a smile. There's still a person there and someone of value. So that's a great message for everyone to hear. And of course, everyone who serves as a caregiver, whether they're professional or a family caregiver, you're of value too. We are not, what our society would not be able to exist without what you do.
Right.
Supporting loved ones, supporting persons who you're there at your place of business in a loving way. It's just so important. And that's another thing that the Alzheimer's Association is really focusing on, which is we call person-centered care.
Right.
To really help caregivers be the best they can at what they do, and also give grace to themselves.
And you'll see it on your screen there too. There's a lot of resources Alzheimer's Association can help you out with, whether it's programming and events that they work with the AARP on, also community services and housing options, even as we talked about, Julie, here a little while ago. And you can find out a lot of that at communityresourcefinder.org. And that's the Alzheimer's Association, AARP, have teamed up on that. And you can find out a whole lot of info about that, and then you can get into the fight yourself. Right, we got it coming up. We got a few months ahead to get everybody ready for this in October. I like to think about this happening in October, Sabrina, because it is so hot out right now. I'd like to think about a nice cool day on the beach down at Stewart Beach, and then on October 14th, the annual Alzheimer's Walk. And the one thing about this is that what you see in this walk is you see folks. My friend Susan Lenning, who's out there, she does all the photos every year, right? And I love her to death. And she's out there doing the photos she had with her mom, and she's very passionate about this. Does her own thing. College of the Mainland folks got there. UTMB's out there in like an army out there every day. I'm telling you. And this is folks say, oh, it's a fun thing, but I can tell you, talk about support groups, Sabrina. This in itself is also like a day of support groups, right? People going through folks will see those, and you have them behind you there. Let me bring you on so you can see a little bit. Folks will see those flowers off your left shoulder there, and those are like the spinning wheel flowers, whirlwinds, and all what those are is you mark on those. You put names of the ones you love that are on that, and it's a memory of that. And I wish I had uploaded one of my favorite photos of my wife actually was when she was in San Antonio and running in college there. She was head of the Alzheimer's Walk there, and it's a photo of her with our golden Gracie and our little terrier Olivia, and they're all there. And the mascot, the coyote from the San Antonio Spurs, comes over, and it comes in and is acting like it's biting the head of our golden, and the golden's biting it back. This is a cute photo, but you can see there was some joy, folks doing some fun there, doing something fun that day, but also the support group. And I know I've emceed this walk a couple of times, and it happens in Galveston, and just everybody gets together and comes together. There's a funness to it, but you see folks sitting and talking and sharing what they're doing. And that's exciting, because that's that support group. And this is just one of the things. It's an outreach effort, obviously, Sabrina, but it's an important part of what Alzheimer's Association does.
Absolutely. We call it the world's largest public awareness event on Alzheimer's disease. It gives people the opportunity to, again, not be alone, to see other people who are dealing with Alzheimer's disease. Plus, we have a lot of people who do not have a connection with the disease, and so they can be better informed. So it's a wonderful thing to get involved in. You can sign up for it now. Don't wait till October. Right. Look for some of these teams. I know that we've got several people involved in our podcast today who have their own teams. So look for those.
You got your own team, Dr. T? Yeah. You got your own team, I know, Julie.
PAS for ALZ, the Physician Assistant Studies Program, had one of the biggest teams last year.
Now, how many were in your team last year?
Almost 50.
Wow. That's impressive. That's
great.
Yep.
So, and all right, we're going to have a house call program out there doing the
geriatrics division.
Oh, that's right. You already have a team.
Yeah.
That's right. You already have a team. I'm sorry.
So I've participated in a few times. Dr. Raji loves to go out.
Oh, that's right. Dr. Raji. That's right. I've seen him out there
and
before.
We do like a little auction bake sale privately for our division to raise money. It's so much fun. And I just want to reiterate, don't be afraid to ask for help. When you see your PCP, ask for the social worker. The social worker, we could not live without them. They're part of the interdisciplinary team. And they are full of resources and knowledge. Social workers are the bomb.
Here.
Yeah. And you can look at the comment section. We have links to all of that. Our great David Bethay has been doing that while fixing some of our technical issues in the background at the same time. You may have heard a lot of rustling around at some point. That was David just climbing under the table trying to get that all fixed. And we appreciate that. And Sabrina, also too, I wonder as well, and I don't know how many times you're part of those efforts to go to Austin or to DC.
Oh, yes.
But one of the things I noticed when I was at Capitol Hill earlier this year, there were a lot of Alzheimer's advocates up there, and there was actually some legislation to help out with caregivers this year. Can you talk some about that? My buddy Mike McGuff was really big in that. His mom and Mike was really pushing that a lot. And I wanted to give a chance to talk about those efforts that were on a state level taking place.
Yes, for sure. We have a way to get involved is alz.org/advocate. If anyone wants to drop that in the Facebook chat. So the Alzheimer's Association for a long time has helped. And again, this is all, Mike is a volunteer for us.
He's a volunteer.
Right. All those people that you see with the sashes spent a day of their lives going to Austin, several days of their lives if they go to Washington, D.C., and they're visiting their congresspersons and talking to them about how important it is to support legislation in Texas to help caregivers, because the caregiver and regulation of assisted living, for example, that all happens at the state level, for the most part at the state level. So this year, with the help of our advocates, we have additional requirements for education for people, professional caregivers in assisted living facilities, for law enforcement officers, because after all, 80% of the persons with Alzheimer's disease at some point will wander. And so the first person that they're likely to be in touch with are the people who are out there looking for them, in addition to family or local law enforcement. And we've heard terrible stories of people being hurt because they were nabbed for supposedly shoplifting when they didn't even understand.
Right.
So we've got more training for law enforcement officers, as well as additional funding for caregiver education at the state level. And then at the national level, we're always in there fighting for more research dollars.
Well, and I wanted to make sure that Mike runs a very popular media blog. It's Mike McGuff and MikeMcGuff.blogspot.com. And what basically he talks about who all of us in the media have taken a job, fired from a job, go to another job, those type of things. It keeps us up to date on that. But he has been making a use of his blog also to get the word out about the work that he's done as a volunteer, and that legislation so important. And it was very well supported on Capitol Hill. I say Capitol Hill, but in Austin, was it not?
Yes, absolutely. I think once people understand, and see put a face and hear the stories, and a lot of people, we were talking about the prevalence of Alzheimer's disease. A lot of people who are serving in public service also have family connections.
Right.
So this is a way for them to make sure that not only are their own families served, but Texans all across the board.
Well, I appreciate that, and hopefully Mike's watching here. I told him I'd be mentioning this at some point today. Hopefully he didn't sign off when we got a little technical difficulties out there. And again, all the resources we've been talking about, all the research links, everything else, they were all in the comment section here. We'll also go put them in the story section of this as well. And forgive me for the technical difficulties we had here. It was actually my fault. I realized I reached over and I hit a cord and unplugged us from the internet. That was my fault. I'm now realizing my mistake, and
so
I will admit that sometimes I make my own mistake. But Sabrina was patient. She came back on with us, and I want to thank my guests here as well. Dr. T, Julie, Tammy, thank y'all for being on with us. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
I think it's been a good conversation here, and we could keep talking the rest of the day. I know about this. Julie, I just got to say personally, your passion that you came in here with today, I serious, we got to bottle that up in a video somewhere, right, David? And get that and use it out there. That was momentous to have it there. And again, if you still have any questions, we have the resources there. You can go and ask about those and talk about that as well. So we appreciate you all. Any final words from anybody? I'll start with you, Dr. T, and then you, Julie, then Tammy, and then Sabrina will let you kind of finish things out for us.
Well, yeah, Ben, my final word has to do with the Alzheimer Association. That something I didn't mention when this discussion was going on, but my career was definitely fueled by the Alzheimer Association. That I was almost dropping off research, and I received a 3-year grant from the Alzheimer Association because I had a very crazy idea. They believe in that idea. They gave me the money, and actually that started my career back. So I'm on the board of the Alzheimer Association.
There for the grace of God.
Yes.
Honest to gosh. It's one of those moments. I hopefully, does Sabrina know about this already? Have you told her this before?
No, but
have you heard that before, Sabrina?
No, I didn't. I knew that he had research support, but I did not realize how critical it was to his.
Here it was. He was about to give up on that on that work. If it's not for y'all's grant, we don't have what those advancements that you have made here. Thank God for that. I mean, seriously, wow. I've gotten. Everyone can see I've gotten chills over here. Y'all can't see me on camera because but yeah, that's something else. Julie, anything from you?
Yeah, I want to give another plug to the walk. It raises funds to help support research, to help support education programs, training for both caregivers, but also professionals to support the helpline. And Alzheimer's can be a very lonely and difficult disease, but coming out to the walk is a demonstration of what solidarity looks like. It's happy, it's joyful. There are people with Alzheimer's who are out there holding court and being in the world. And it's just a really beautiful event. It's free to join, especially my team, PAS for ALZ. Join a team, start a team, but get involved because you absolutely will not regret it. And every dollar that's raised is going to help us get towards a better future.
By the way, you can bring your dogs out there too. My dogs love it. It's out there too. They always put on their. My wife makes sure that the dogs have the names of her parents on them there each and every time. Tammy, how about yourself?
The perfect example of community, like you guys stated it. There's house call teams out there. There's home health. There's hospice. I just want to continue to encourage the community to band together to help our seniors, especially the ones that are frail, older, in the home, with strained caregivers. We need to provide that support system. And to do that, we can't stand alone out there. We have to band together.
Thank you for that. Sabrina, I actually get the final word, but I thought I'd give you a chance next to the final word.
I appreciate that. So today is actually the summer solstice, which is the longest day. This is the day where we actually celebrate caregivers because another saying is that for caregivers, every day is the longest day. So there are lots of activities going on to mark the occasion of the longest day today. And you said yourself, TJ, that we could go on and do this for hours. I'm going to give you a challenge. This is Alzheimer's and Brain Awareness Month in June, but November is not only Family Caregiver Month, but it's also another Alzheimer's month. And I'm sure all of us would love to come back and talk more.
Yeah, I think that'd be good. And Becky's going to give us a thumbs up. Hopefully we'll even do it as a special edition of Healthcare Unmasked out there. And we'll try to do something special with 945 Now and Galveston Now around that time as well, raise even some more money out there. I'm not going to walk. I'm just, I like to watch everyone else walk. It's a little bit for it. I'll just wave at you as you go by out there, Julie. But yeah, Sabrina, thanks a lot. I appreciate it. And sorry about the technical demo. We were saving everything at the end and it just decided to fritz out, but you stuck around and we were able to get that information out. We appreciate all of you for coming on with us here today. We appreciate all of our viewers that have been out there today. Just to be able to point out, while we didn't have many people commenting this time around, we had around 15,000 viewers. I just looked at in the first 20 minutes of our program today. So obviously it is touching a lot of folks' hearts out there. I'm TJ Alds. This has been Healthcare Unmasked, presented by UTMB.